All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful series of Niger Data Platform where we talk about different things concerning data. Today, we'll be looking at another wonderful and powerful, unique series. We'll be talking about how to manage and manipulate your machine learning on Azure, right? And today, we will having none other person but Michael Adekoya, all the way from Birmingham City University. Michael Adekoya has a master's degree in big data analytics, right? He's also a data engineer and a Microsoft certified Azure database administrator. He's also very vast with working with Power BI and also trains on data platform. All right, so Mr. Michael, welcome on board. Thank you for having to come on board today. All right. Even though we just shared your profile in a very brief way, I know you're more than that. And very soon our viewers will get to see what stuff Mr. Michael is made of. Thank you for joining us today.
All right. Thank you for having me, Harry, and everyone. And apologies for starting late, and it's just due to some technical challenges. But I hope we'll be able to,
No,
you know, cover up for all that. All right, good. So
all
without
right.
wasting much of
No
our time,
problems. The floor is yours now.
without wasting much of our time, so what we'll be talking about today, basically how to optimize and manage your model in Microsoft Azure, if to be more precise in the machine learning umbrella or window or space as the case may be or as you may call it. And for this management aspect of this ML operations, so for ML, well, I'll be referring to machine learning as ML, and so I'll be shortening it. For the aspect of the ML operations, so for you to be able to, carry out all of these machine learning um, optimization, management and what have you. It majorly depends on the kind of authoring tool that we're using to develop our model. So let me just quickly share my slides and just put us through what we will be going through today. What will be can you see my screen, please? Ari,
Yeah, I can see your
can you see
screen
my
very
slide?
well, Michael.
You can see my slide, right?
The screen is clear. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Optimize and manage
okay,
model.
good.
Yeah.
All right, good. Yeah. So optimize and manage model. That's what we're talking about today, and that's just me as Ari has introduced me. Just machine learning. I do machine learning by the side, and I'm enthusiast for machine learning. I work majorly using R for machine learning, and then I do majorly with genetic algorithm. Those are my areas, and but sometimes I also do the likes of clustering algorithm and what have you. So, and then our partners for this event, Microsoft, Jure, and Enterprise DNA, and one other one. Thank you guys for sponsorship. So the outline, what I will just talk about today, yeah, for throughout this our presentation, I'll be looking at introduction into the entire machine learning as a whole, and then in the introduction I would also just mention the different authoring platform where we can actually author our machine learning models, and then more specifically we'll be choosing the automated ML for the purpose of what we want to do, and we'll look at how we can achieve some of these um, items listed here underneath. Then we'll looking at automated machine learning, the task and the algorithms, how it works. Then we're looking at the pre-processing and the feature selection. And then we're looking at how you'll be able to run automated machine ML. And lastly, we'll have an exercise like a demo. And when it comes to the demo, anyway, we'll have a demo. But when it gets to the demo, we have to be very smart about it, because most of the models, when you try to run most of the operations, when you try to run an operation, it usually takes like 30 minutes, some takes very longer hours, and then of course we would not have that luxury of time to actually see all of to stay to say all of those things. So we just have we'll be smart about it anyway. All right. So now, before we even get into, before we go deeper into automated ML, so I'll be changing my screen. I'll be changing my screen from time to time. I'll come back to the PowerPoint, and then I'll go to the Azure interface so that we can save time. Okay, so now before we go into that, let me quickly go to the um interface. Oh, sorry. Okay, so now what I just want to do now, I expect that from here, everyone on this platform, you should have already have your free Microsoft Azure account, or maybe subscribe Microsoft subscription, whichever one it is, and then you are able to you are able to log into your Microsoft Azure interface. So now, there's a thing about optimization. When we talk about optimization in general, whether you're doing machine learning or you're doing any other form of development, optimization actually starts from the process of your deployment, from your environment, when you started, when you start when you start configuring your environment, when you start setting up all the items, all the operations you'll be using in your environment. From all of those space, all of those operations, that is where the optimization really starts from. And then management as well, for you to be able to manage all of these things, that I expect that you understand that you have the understand the how the um Azure Resource Group works as well. So now I already have a resource group that I have created before now, and for the purpose of using my demo AI, this is the resource group that I have created before now for the purpose of this um, demo. However, I'll just take us through some things as well on it. Now, for us to go into our machine learning proper, of course, when you have in your Azure subscription, so I'll just quickly create a demo. I'll quickly create a machine learning interface for us right now. And then one of the ways we can do that is from wherever you are, just search on your Azure machine learning. Yeah, when you do that, you can quickly create a new workspace for yourself. So I'll just come up with the configuration, and then we'll actually be making use of these two workspace that I have created earlier. So the workspace basically, as you may have known, is just a platform where it gives you that platform, that umbrella that takes everything together, where you can actually author your machine learning algorithm and specify what you need to do, and what have you. So just quickly, I just want to show us something on this the part in the beginning when we start doing our configuration. Yeah, like I said, you just need to specify the resource group. I specify a resource group for myself, so I'm trying to run against time now. And then of course, the name of your resource group can be just the name of your workspace. Just give your workspace any name of your choice. And then now, yeah, you need to be very conscious of something here. And I said from the configuration, that's what we'll be looking at, because now this is one of the management too, and then how you optimize the region I have here. We are tied to a particular region. The region I have here is showing me UK South. This is the region that is closer to me. And in my resource group, I have UK South region as well. Yeah, whatever region we choose here during our configuration will be tied to that region during our by the time we start using our machine ML to author, by the time we start using the studio. So yeah, you have to be very conscious of the region you choose, and then due to latency, and then you have to be just look at the region that is closer to you and where you actually want your data to see. So that's the first thing we need to take note of. And then of course, here you have some configuration that shows you the storage account it wants to use. You can use your own storage. In fact, it can create a new storage account for you. The algorithm will do all of that for you. And then if you have some registered container registry that you want, you can specify that. But if you don't have, it will create everything for you. Yes, then just go to when you go to review and create, it gets created. And then when that is done, well, let's just assume that is done. So it tries to create, it takes about a few seconds to create, and then validation is passed, you start creating. Now, when that is done, so I just want to go back to the space I have, the space I already have earlier. So what it's done, it creates the environment for you, and then we are now left to launch the studio. So let me just quickly go to resource group, my resource group, which is the demo AI. So if you have everything organized, it'll be easier for you to do all of this. So I said in my I have two workspace on my resource group, which is the notebook and then the previous workspace. So I'll just go to the previous workspace. So now when I launch my studio, so there's something I just want to show us here quickly. Now, suppose you follow the settings, the environment detail that I mentioned earlier, it will create the environment for us, and then we have the environment variable. Okay, there's something I didn't show us. All the environment variable, the way we set it up, we can actually, pick that configuration. Let me show you. Okay, yeah, overview here. This is the previous workspace. So suppose after specifying all the credentials, it gives us this workspace. And there's another thing we can do here. After specifying all the parameters we want for our workspace, we can actually download this file, this configuration file. Supposing this configuration is unique to the organization we're working with, we can download this configuration as a JSON file here. Yes. And then when we download this configuration as a JSON file, we can actually use it in another program when we're about to author our, by the time we want to start to author our machine learning, in part of the environment configuration details, we can actually use that, call in the JSON file, and then it will work. And then in the JSON file, what do you really have in JSON file? Just tell you the resource group. Let me see. Let me just quickly open. It just tell you the resource group, what you have in the resource, where the resource is located, and then the resource group, the name of your subscription, and what have you. Let me just do that with Notepad. So this is what it will show you, and then with this you're good to go. You can call that in your work space. So now, as soon as we have that created, yeah, so we are now within the ML studio. Now in the ML studio, when we go to, we have, of course, we have three different areas there. Sorry, this was what I loaded earlier. We have the auto pane, and then the asset, and then the manage here underneath here. So now when we go to, I want for a minute, I just want to focus on the manage end that we have. On the manage end there, when we go to our data store, the environment was configured for us. And when the environment was configured for us, it came with all of these settings here, all of these the storage which will hold our data store, of course, which more like database that our machine learning all the data we'll be working with will be stored on. And this is all the one that has this prefix that say previous. So the whole of these four storage were created for me while authoring, during the specify the parameters for my workbook. Now, for my workspace. Now, in this aspect here, because we're talking about optimization and management, now it is a good practice for us to have our own storage ourselves. We don't have to allow the algorithm to do all that for us. We can actually create our own storage ourselves. And of course, just create our storage ourselves, our data store. Yeah. From here, we can just easily specify the data store we want to create. We can give our data store a name, so that all of our data set or whatever we're doing, we're very sure that it is going to that very particular storage. Because if care is not taken, if we just open our environment and just start working, it has a default database itself that saves all of this time. By the time we need to come back to revisit what we have done before, yeah, we may have some little issues with it, because if we are not sure of the exact storage where these things are saved. So for here, all you just need to do is specify a data store that you want of your choice. Just give it a name. When you give it a name, maybe sample, whatever, then the data source type could be Azure Blob Storage, and then specify your subscription. If you have a storage account that you have before, remember the storage account. Yeah, you just specify the storage account. I think I have a storage account that I have here, which is my demo AI. And then if you have of course, the container in your blog, just specify it. And if you want to use the credentials, so for this data access, for us to be able to access whatever data we have in the data dump there, in our data dump, which is the blob container, we need to determine, do we want it to use same credentials with data store for access? We say yes. Then we now need to go back into our Azure storage. We need to go back into our Azure interface where we have our storage. Yeah, when we have our storage, and then we'll come under the access key. We have my demo storage. This is my demo storage. Yes, this demo storage. When we come under the storage, then we want to have access to, we want to click on our access key. So when we click on our access key, the first key here, we copy it, and then when we copy the first key there, we go back into our configuration and then paste the key here. When we paste the key here, we are able to just click on create. Okay, let me call this sample demo new data store, so that we will know new data store. So then you want to use the workspace as a managed identity or customer base, which is usually for the managed identity. So by the time we do that, we immediately have our data store being created for us. It may take a few seconds for our data store to come up. So while that is coming up to create, it doesn't take longer time anyway. So when that is done, the next thing we want to look at is, now imagine a situation where we are working with different teams, and then your data set, the data set you want to work with, you need to, it is always a good idea, like a good practice for us whenever we're working with data set, to have our data set registered. Of course, in the ML, in the on the management studio, on the learning studio, there are different ways we can alter our machine learning activity. Of course, we can use the designer, we can use the automated ML, we can use our notebook as well. But it is always a best practice, one of the best practice, to have your data set registered, so that it can be seated within your so that every other team can make use of it. And when there is versioning, for the sake of when there is versioning or when there's an update on that data set, you don't have to go and re-import it into your model anymore. Instead, you just create another version of it within the registered interface there, and then your model can just make use of it. Remember, what we're talking about is just optimization and how to manage. So some of the activities that we do that will make life easier for us within the machine learning studio, that would further save us time and effort and make life easier for everyone. So now, when that is done, we can easily select it. Anyway, the one I created earlier was new data store. We can set that as our default, or just set it as our default, and then that is that about that. So the next thing we just look at now is on the data part. On the data part, I have some data here that I've already registered. So I just show us how to register a data set. And then for us to register a data set, when we have here, let me expand this so that we can see all the options that we have. From the asset end here. So what we just need to do from the asset end is to go on the create. Now, for us to create the data set, there are different parts where our data set can be, or different types of data set that we can have, or different where our files can be located or seated. So from the local files, we can decide to maybe have a CSV on our local machine. We can bring that into our local files, or we have the data store from the data store, maybe from one of the blob storage, or we have from one of the web service, or from the open data set. Let me just pick something from the open data set. So from the open data set is like, there are different data set samples that are available for us to work with on Azure or in Azure. Different one for purpose of demos and all of that, and walkthrough. So we can actually look at some of those data sets, and just pick any of them. Let me just pick the one for diabetes. Yeah. So when you pick the one for diabetes, for example, so what we want to do is just to create a data set. So I'll just click on select the next one. Then of course the name of the data set, and then when I click on create, I have it here. And then okay, all right, just a minute. Okay, good. We have it here. Just want to be sure. Okay, good. We have it here. And then as soon as I do that, I already have my data set in my I already have that very particular data set ready to work with. All of my teams can work with it. And then look at it here. This is what I was saying. If there's a need for, look at the information here, what it says about the current version. The current version is one, that's the first version, and then this is the most recent version. So if there is any need, if there is any modification, okay, we can just explore the data set to see what we have in data set. If there's any need for any modification to that data set, maybe there's addition to new columns. Yeah, there's a new columns addition based on whatever we are predicting or whatever our model is working with. We can easily add that, and when we add that, and as soon as that is done, we can upload that as a new version that our team will work with. So it's like a one-time it's like a one-time operation, while every team members get to work with that. So now let's now tie everything to. I know that I've been saying everything, scattered. I've been trying to gather several pieces of all of these activities together, because when you try to run an entire workflow at the same time, it takes a longer time. In fact, it take a longer time that we'll still be there for this demo, and then it will still not finish. But let me just quickly tie everything together in few minutes. Then before I now just go to the automated ML. Now, so back to our home page here. I want to believe that we all understand how to, if you need to author a machine learning model, for example, maybe a prediction model. We all know how, or a regression model to make a prediction. We all know how that is done. That is the assumption on which this whole demo is based. So, however, just to show us a more insight into what I am saying. For example, for example, let's assume that we have a designer. We're using this. We are at the designer interface right now. We have this automobile price that we want to predict. That we want our machine learning model to predict for us. And then what we exactly want it to predict for us is what is the price. We want it to predict the price for us, the price of automobiles, based on all the available metrics that it has. So that's what we want to do, and this is just the price that we want to predict. Now, ordinarily in the designer, we have to specify all of these components. We have to pick all of these components and say, okay, you know what, give me the automobile, this is the automobile price, this is data input. And then out of the data set that I have with me, I have to select some of the column I want to work with. Yeah, if you select some of the columns you want to work with, and then if you need to exclude any of the columns, and you need to normalize, for normalization, maybe you need to scale, because when you normalize, when you have institution where you have, say, maybe you have like outliers, you have different when you have outliers, and then you just want to you know scale and stuff like that. Then yeah, now you select columns you want. Then the next thing you get to do ideally is clean the data. Like, that's where you do your data pre-processing. Clean your data to make sure that your data is clean, because when you have a dirty data, of course it's going to affect your the output of your prediction. And then of course, when that is done, of course you have to clean your when your data is clean, you have to split your data. Yeah, the ideal rule is, when you're splitting your data, is usually 30-70 or 70-30, depends on the case, or the case may be. So the training data set will be 70%, and that 70% will be uh it will be randomly selected from your data set. You just need to specify, okay, this 70% of my data will be splitted 70% for training, while 30% for test. Now, then the mode, of course, the data, after that has been done, whatever model you want to use to train your data, if it is the linear regression model, because we are doing because this model here that we have here is prediction, is trying to predict the price. But we expect a linear regression um a linear regression model. So yeah, and once that is specified, we want to specify the algorithm we want to use, and then the next thing is for it to train the model. And when you train the model, as soon as the model is trained, of course, it always one of the good parts is when you train a model, you have to score the model. When you score the model, and then you have to evaluate. Evaluate is just seeing the result of the model. When you look at the mean square error, you had the mean square error, the absolute mean square error, and some of these metrics, and see how they perform and all of that. That is the designer. This is just the this is the entire life cycle of when you're trying to create a machine learning, maybe a regression model that would, make price prediction for you. This is the typical uh, scenario. Now, I'm more very what to say, I'm more very familiar, or very what's the word now? I'm more very comfortable rather using the notebook, because within the notebook, you can just easily run some of your whatever you're trying to do. For example, maybe I'm trying to train a model. Yeah, maybe I'm trying to train a model, and I can just easily run within my notebook, easily run each of my cells. And what I just need to do is just the same thing that I've done in the designer interface. The designer interface is basically just for every one of us to be able to jump on machine learning in an easy way, easy to do way, so that we can all get going with it over time and get our hands on it. So for us to use the notebook is majorly for people who are who like to write the coding part, who like to do, like, write code and all of that. Although everyone can do that, it's nothing difficult. Yeah, and it we have different notebook samples we have for on samples there that you can just easily clone. And I'll just show us how to clone that. And then when you do that, you can, the first thing is connect to your workspace. You have every line there to connect to your workspace. Just run your cell to connect to your workspace. Create a training script just the way in the designer. A training script has been created in designer, just in the designer that I showed us 30, 70, 30. Year two, we at this end there, it create a training, create a training script. And then the next thing it does, it has all of the, I'll be go through everything, but it has all of the stages, all of the steps listed in the notebook. And then you just need to run each cell. Just when you run each cell, it does its own operation, and then you register the train model, and it comes and goes all the way that way. Now, but when it comes to that, is this is how Notepad works. You can even author, for the purpose of, okay, since we are talking about optimization. Now the good thing is, for your own project, you can, because there is a lot of, where you are using compute, where you are using some services. We have the compute instance and we have the compute cluster. The compute instance, basically under the compute part there, the compute instance is basically for you to, it's like a VM, like a virtual machine. If you want to use like your Jupyter, yeah, your Jupyter, or your Jupyter Lab, VS Code, and what have you, it actually runs on the compute instance. And whenever your compute instance is on, of course, it always you have charges. There's a certain amount that you're being charged. um and then so now what I just wanted to say is that it is possible for you to have your machine learning algorithm created in your own environment, your own notebook, on your own machine, on your own local device, on your own workstation. And then you bring in that workstation, you bring in that notebook, you bring it in here to come and run it here on the compute cluster. Why do you want to do that? That will help you to save cost, instead of using the VM for that's been provisioned by Azure for you. Because whenever you have the VM provisioned by Azure, by the time by the time you're running on it, of course you have a certain amount that you'll be charged per hour, depending. And then if your VM is running, as long as it's running, if your compute is running, this one here, like right now the status is running. If it is running, you have a certain amount that you'll be charged for it, for the fact that it is running. And then that will not be cost effective for you, but it's just a little amount. But if you're doing enterprise scale, I'll towards the end, towards maybe like 20 minutes, 15 minutes to the end, I'll also tell us one of the best practices when it comes to using ML ops, just like the way you have the DevOps and the entire workflow. So yeah, so when you so for the compute for the part like I was talking about then. So now let me go back to what I was saying. So notebook and designer, they have almost similar concepts. And when it comes to for you to optimize your model, one of the best way to optimize your model is when we employ the concept of automated ML. Now, in automated ML, one of the simplest thing is this: the difference is that in automated ML, supposing we are trying to um okay, I want to have an example here, but I will just create the setup, but I want to run it in automated ML. Now supposing we are trying to create, I have a bike there and renters there. So supposing we have this bike data set, and then we want to see the periods where bike rentals skyrocket. What are the periods where bike rentals skyrocket? As in when are those periods where people tend to rent bike more and all of that? And then we have a data set already, because remember I said we register our data set, and then I already have a data set that I already registered earlier, which is bike rentals that are already registered. So I just want to look at the data quickly. Of course, I just need to explore it. I just want to look at it easily, so I'll just have a view of the data set. So we just want to look at how automated ML will do this and to be done in a more optimized way that will save, that will save us time, save us resources, and then help us. However, we need to specify some criteria, some features that we need to specify as well. So this is the data set that we have. So it has just the day of the year, the holiday, weekday, working, weather, temperature, and then humidity, wind speed, and what have you. Yeah. So now, supposing, and then of course, this is the only version we have here. And then, of course, because we have registered the data set, if we want to consume the data set, of course, we can always look at all this part of all these other features that tells us how to consume the data set. If you want to use, maybe you want to do that in your Python notebook and what have you. So now go back to the automated ML. So the point is this: um, automated ML will help you to create your model with multiple algorithm, and then you can get to specify the algorithm that you want it to work with. So when you specify the algorithm you want it to work with, it makes life more easier for the algorithm itself, and even for you, because there'll be no need for running endlessly. Okay, so now for example, now I just need to specify. So the first thing I did there was just automated ML. I need to specify the data set I want to work with. I said the bike data set, and then I just click on next. For that, I'm not going to run this. Don't Like I said, I'm not going to run this job. I will just configure it, and then um I would explain. I think I have one that I've run earlier. So now for the experiment, yeah, we just need to specify experiment, because I believe we understand the concept of experiment and jobs run or works. So for the experiment, we just need to give the experiment a name, whatever name we want to give the experiment. Just give experiment a name. So when we give the experiment a name, then the target column, what is the target column that we are trying to predict from the data set that we have? What is the column? What exactly are we trying to predict? And what we are trying to predict is the rentals. The rentals is what we are trying to predict, right? So we specify the column we are trying to predict as rentals, and then of course the compute instance. Yeah, I didn't say much about this, but the compute instance and the compute cluster. Now, whenever we are doing a machine learning job that involves a very large data set, of course, there is a particular core, like the core that we are our VM, more like a virtual machine that it will run upon. And ideally, the compute instance is just like the development environment. Why you during training, it makes use of the compute cluster. So anyway, for this purpose, we just select our compute cluster. I have the one that I've provisioned before, so I just select the compute cluster, and then the name of the cluster is this is the name of the AZM workload. Yeah, so I'll just click on next. Yeah, now this is it. What we want to do is what is a prediction. It's a prediction, right? We want to predict. Yeah, and then we just need to know this is automated ML, and this is why it is optimized and more reliable. It helps us manage resources based on our configurations. Now I just need to specify whatever I need to do here. the whatever the types of experiment I want to do. I just want it to be since it's prediction, it's going to be regression. And then the next thing I need to do here is under these options here. This is where it becomes interesting. Under this option that say view additional configuration, I can come to under this and the additional configuration. Now the primary metric here, I can specify the primary metric that I want to use. If it is the normalized root mean square or Spearman correlation, as the case may be. So I'll just leave it for normalized root mean square, and then I'll allow the model. Okay, I'll allow the model to do every other thing for me, to explain the best model. These are the options I want. I want to explain the best model. Then here that says use all the supported models. Under this option here, if I leave it with the default configuration, these are all the models that the AutoML is going to use to do whatever it wants to do. It's going to work on our data set. So to keep running each of those models one after the other, we don't need to interfere. We just give it time to run. Some models can even take as long as days to to work on it to run. But because we are talking about optimization and how to manage our resources and all of that, so yeah, what we just need to do is, if we know what we want to do, specify only maybe the two, maybe two or three models that we want it to run with. For example, we might say, okay, we want it to run with random forest, decision tree, and maybe KNN and KNN. So, but however, because we want all of these ones, we have to select everything first, because all the ones we selected are the ones it's going to use. So, but the ones we want to block, the ones we want to block, we tick all the ones we want to block. So we want to block every other thing from here. Yes, except all the ones I've mentioned. We want to leave random forest. Yeah. So a block. Okay, so we have these three models only, which is decision tree, KNN, and random forest. So we have selected, we told that, okay, you know what? For this algorithm you want to run now, for this whatever you want to do, this prediction you want to do for them, these are the models you should stick with. So all the ones blue ticked are the ones that you should block, because if we don't specify those, allow use all of these ones. Then here, our exit uh our exit criterion, like at what point should the algorithm stop running? Yeah, we don't need to leave it by default. If you leave it by default, you know what this means is that training job time is 6 hours. And this 6 hours, what this 6 hours means is that for each of the model, is going to run each of the models for 6 hours. So we don't want that. So what we for here, we can just say that we want like maybe 0.5 30 minutes for those models. If you run those models for 30 minutes, that is okay. Then metric score threshold. Our threshold should just be like uh, our data splitting, the way we want our data to be splitted, how we want our data set to be for the metric score. And then for the concurrence, we can just leave the concurrence the way the concurrence is. Yeah. And then we'll save that. Then the last thing I'll just show us here before I go to my slide and then talk about best practice is under the featureization. Now, what featureization will just tell us? Under featureization is just telling us what are the features in the data set that we want our model to actually use. What are the model we want it to stick with? What are the features we want it to stick with? Because there's feature selections and all of that. Even in some comprehensive system, I remember I did something on feature selection. It's the machine automatically selects features for you. So yeah, if we want to reduce some of the features that we want it to use from the columns we have in data set, it's talking about they will have the day, the month, and the year. If there's anyone we don't want it to use, we just tick it out and then we leave it. But for the purpose of this, we can just leave. If we have some important features that we want to use, we can specify those important features here, and then the model will use those important features. That is another way of optimizing that. And so we'll just click save, and then once that is done, is just to go to parameter tuning. That one is not just for computer vision only, and then we can leave that. Then here, validation type here. For the validation, we may decide that we want to use our own additional data set, maybe data set we have to test it, or we can just leave it as auto. If you leave it as auto, it's going to use from the split and train data set that is used. It's going to use that to train and test the model. And then when we click finish, it will just start initiating the job. You start the job, and I don't want to click finish now because okay, anyway, let me just click it. And that's how the job gets started. But however, let me now go back to here. I just have 1 more minute on this before I go back to my slide. So on the automated ML, I have one that I have run before, which is this one on the automated ML. So once, supposing after we've clicked finish, it finished running, then we have all of these details. We can, all of these details here, it will give us all the, of course, when our job started running, the guide drills, and then which just tell us all of the our output parameters, some of the features, some of the things that happened, while our model was while it was running, and then the models that it went through each of the models, and then the models was able to make use of during the run, and then I think another feature here that was is this view explanation that will explain for each of the model for some. It's okay now. This is what it does here. Let me go back here. Sorry. Under before we come to explain here. Now the algorithm name under this model here. I think under overview. Sorry, under overview here. So the input data set. This is our input data set. The bike that we imputed earlier, and then the output of our ML flow. This is the output, and then these are some of the metrics that tell us about the errors, the mean error, median, and what have you. However, what the algorithm does here is just to choose the best model out of the two machine learning models that out of the models that we have specified for you to use. You just choose the best one, and then it's the best one that comes here. And then when the best one comes here, this is why I was trying to say that um, under the model overview, hold on, under the model here, we can actually choose um, explanation. This is a new feature, which a preview, which can now come to our data set and say that okay, yeah, under after the what do you call it? After our automated ML has performed, the algorithm has done his job. We can now come here to now start examining everything it has done. The model in terms of the model performance, how we are able to evaluate the model performance by exploring most of this, all the prediction values. We can do data set exploration even here to see okay what was going on, and then important thing here is the features now. So if another team member is looking at our work, we can see some of the features that it uses, the top 4 features of their and how they are important to the model. And remember we have a lot of features there. We can even increase it to see okay, what are the top 6 features? How has it been able to use it? So the working day happens to be the one of the top features that it uses. So now I think I know it's been a kind of packed uh, section, but in summary, when you use automated ML actually help us to optimize our model more in a more easier way for us. But one of the best practices that I just want to mention before we quickly go because our time is fast spent. I'm just trying to run through. Is that one of the ways to go now is the ways of DevOps. DevOps. When I say DevOps, not exactly DevOps, but by the way of using the ML operations. There are some ML operations, and when you look at the Microsoft documentation for ML operations is like combining the work of the continuous integration and development, and at the same time, when there's the need for retrain of our models, we need to retrain our models. Then it comes handy. We can retrain our model. We can have an entire life cycle from the beginning to the end. So if you are looking at the more better way to manage our models, to create manage our models, allow reusable, allow faster deployment and what have you, is to go by the way of ML operations, ML ops. And when you go ML ops, then you find it more interesting again. It gives you a better way of managing our models. So I hope I've been able to, I know the demo on modeling is usually takes a lot of time, but I just hope that in the little time I've been able to, just show us one of these things about um how to manage our model and configuration environment and optimize our model as well. Harry, are you there? Is that ready? Okay.
If you can hear me. Can you hear me?
So is anyone, Ari, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. So thank you very much for your time. Yeah, you did justice to it, but something just you seem like a magician from what you were doing. Trust me, most of our viewers will want to attest to that. All right. I'm very sure most of our viewers will have to come watch this over and over again. I'm very sure Michael also did not just get here in one day, and just like our previous one of our speakers said earlier. Yeah, so it takes time and effort, all right, and the more you give your time to it, the better you get. All right, am I correct, Michael? I'm sure you didn't just get here in one day.
Yes. Now the thing I will say is this. Now I didn't just get here in one day. Like Ari is correct to say that uh you see it may look like a magic to you, but I want to tell you something, and which is the fact that the more you get your hands on of these things, the easier it becomes
Mm,
for you. And then more, it's just that
mm,
unfortunately for the topic we are discussing now, manage model is not just creating, it's not just about creating the models where I'll just go and create for you, use designer, do drop and just some of those features, components, create the models, and then just keep it running. No, that's not what this topic is about. This
mm,
topic is really about how to, because when you're working with an organization, there is actually a need. In fact, personally, I feel that the best way, and which is even the best practice, to optimize your model is actually to go the way of ML operations. But whatever you are doing on your local system, you are doing that into into your own pocket too. Because by the time you get into the organization,
mm,
when you to do that, you are working with a large team. You're working with a
mm.
larger team, big team. The same data set you guys are working on, you can't just keep it onto yourself on your local system. It is not cost effective.
Yeah.
So it has to be on the central place where it is registered, and then they have to be some things that monitors who have access, who can even run some clusters. Maybe when they have a compute service, maybe a compute machine, who can run anything on that machine. That's some of the things the DevOps will do. The ML ops operation. You have to specify, give roles that okay, this particular user can run on this compute service, so that you don't delete
Mm,
something, you don't knock something out of the entire production space. So ML operation covers the entire management management when it comes to model deployment. Yeah, this may look like magic, but believe me, when you watch it over and over, and in just one word,
mm,
in one sentence, the takeaway is that for us to be able to optimize and manage our model well on the machine, on the ML studio, in the ML studio, we go the one of the best way to go is the way of automated ML. That is the point we are just trying to make. Automated ML. When you do
mm,
automated ML, the algorithm does everything for you. You just need to specify some features so that you make it more optimized. Because if you don't specify some features, in situation where it needs to use, maybe the algorithm will go and use like 12 different options that you don't need. Maybe it's just only three
mm,
options that you need out of the. You need to specify those three options and tell you, okay, look, just use only these three options. Storage, I want you to keep whatever you are doing, I want to save it in this capacity. Whatever you want to run,
mm,
the number of calls I want to run it within this core. So those are the things that will actually make it more optimized for you. So that's just the summary of everything we're trying to do in 1 hour.
mm, mm. Great, great, great. So, in a nutshell, you're advising the aspiring data scientists, right? That when we want to deploy our models on Azure machine learning, we should probably use the Auto ML route,
Yeah, auto ML, yeah.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And then
Uh,
just
you've done
look
okay,
up ML ops. It's just like DevOps. Everything that
okay,
DevOps does, it is not the same thing as DevOps though, but they are very similar. Everything that DevOps does, at the end of DevOps, you just have a retraining additional step, which is just to retrain your model. So that's just it.
okay, okay. But so quick one, I just want to ask: does this have anything to do with like long term when you want to go deep into it? Does it have anything to do with Kafka?
No, so Kafka, yeah, now there are different. Now, when you're working with data at the long, maybe you're working with
Mm,
different type of data, large streaming data set. Wherever your data set is coming from,
yeah.
if you're working with streaming data, there's a platform that can actually, when you work with a very large data set, there's a platform you can use PySpark. There's a platform that an environment that will allow you to be able to work with that conveniently. Yeah. And when you're
Okay.
working with streaming
Okay.
data set, there's another platform that will allow you to be able to work with that conducively. When you're dealing with batch processing, It's a platform that will allow you. So it's whether you wear Kafka for streaming or Apache Spark or Hadoop for big data. It's just getting the right tool for the right data. It depends on what you're faced with. Okay,
Hmm.
it's just whatever
Hmm.
you're faced with.
All right.
I remember in the storage, I was
All right.
specifying the storage. I specified the storage as just blob storage when I started
Yeah.
the demo.
Yeah.
That
I
just
was going
storage.
to ask why I did that anyways.
Yeah, it was because of the data set I was working with. It was not a large data set. And then Azure Blob Storage, one of the
Okay.
things with Azure Blob Storage is when you're doing like Azure Synapse Analytics, those who are within the data warehouse space, you
Hmm.
tend to
Hmm.
put our data in Azure Blob Storage and, and all of that. So the data I want to work with, I can actually put it there so that I can even allow other users who doesn't want to use machine learning on that data set. Maybe they just want to connect to it and just explore the data. So we have the data in one
Hmm.
place, and multi-users. We just give access to people who
Can
have
have
we just
access
give
to
access to
it.
different users who have access to that data set and that data, that file, and they can work with it as well, even while I'm doing my own work as well. So it's just a
Yeah,
way
that's
of
while you're doing your machine learning. Okay.
while I'm doing my machine learning activities, why data scientists are doing machine learning, other teams who are also making use of the same data set. So you have the same data set, but different users are working on it.
All right, great. Thank you very much for sharing this wonderful insight. So, quick one before we end the broadcast, right? Uh, please, if you have any question, please drop it in the comment section. I forgot to say that earlier on. Although, what would happen is now that the time is fast spent. What will happen is whatever question you drop, we will revisit it, and Michael will actually come to answer it some other time. That's fine, right, Michael?
Yeah, sure, sure. And if you have questions, what you can just do is maybe on
Okay.
LinkedIn. If I cannot on LinkedIn, you can just send those messages to me on LinkedIn, and then I'll just reply to it because I know our time is fast
All right,
spent,
Michael.
considering the fact that we had
That's
some.
that's good. Give me your LinkedIn profile. Let me drop it in the comment section. Michael.
Okay, Michael Adekoya. I think okay,
Uh,
okay. The link, right? Let me
yeah,
see.
the link.
Okay,
The link will be fine. So you can go
okay. I'll
look
just
him
put
up.
it.
Ask him questions.
Okay. So can you see it in the chat
You
section?
dropped it, yeah?
Oh, sorry. That's
Not yet. I think you sent it to a private chat. Are you sure you sent it to? Okay, I think
yes.
I've
So
not seen it yet, though.
can you see? Please, can you copy from the
Not
private
yet.
chat and just drop it in the live chat?
All right, no problems. Let me
Because
do
I'm
that
trying to
now.
drop it in the live chat. I don't
A
think I can see
minute,
that.
please. A minute, please. A minute. Copy link. Uh. and paste. Here we go. All right. So, just in case you have any question, you want to reach out to him personally, you can reach out to him on the private chat. So, quick one. We're talking. You made mention of something just before you leave, right? You made mention of something during the session, right? Which is being cost effective. So one very funny thing happened to me recently. I was trying out my hand on Azure, right? So I discovered that I just opened one day and my Azure credits had finished. Do you understand? So I discovered that probably
Yeah,
I'd left the compute on or
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
distance on or something. So I felt devastated because I really wanted to try out some other stuff, but unfortunately I couldn't. So what would you advise that would quickly
Yeah.
manage that? To turn off compute and make sure everything you are
Okay.
cost effective. What advice would you give on that?
Yeah. So can you still see my screen? Can you still see my screen?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now, lastly, whatever you're trying on Azure, please don't always forget. That's why one of the things when you talk about management is that that's why I was saying that you have to put all these things we are doing. It may seems irrelevant, but it's highly relevant. You have to put everything you are doing into a particular resource group. You can see that everything I was doing have a
Okay.
particular resource group, which I call it is it my demo, whatever.
My
The
demo
resource group I call
AI.
my
My
demo
demo
AI.
AI. Yeah. Yeah.
My demo AI. Everything I'm doing is within my demo AI. Now the thing is, your compute that you have on, if you don't stop it, this is my compute that I have on. If I don't stop it, I get charged per hour
Yeah.
for it. Maybe some
Oh
certain
wow.
amount. Maybe that's what happened in your case. So you have to go to your compute side, yeah, select on your
Okay.
compute and stop your compute. Even if you stop your compute, if you stop it here like this now, say I stop it like this, click on the stop, click on it and click on the stop. If you stop your compute, you will not be charged hour for the compute. However, the data that you have worked with, that you have saved within that storage, you'll be charged for it, but it's just a minute
Oh
amount.
wow.
You'll be charged
Okay.
for it. So
At least
one of the
that's
best
better.
ways, yeah, that is better. But one of the best, because this one you get charged per hour. By the time you get charged per hour, before you know what's happening, maybe you have been charged maybe $1 per 3 hours, and you left it on for how many hours? Maybe for days. Before you know what's happening, your
Yeah.
Azure credit is finished. So one of the best thing
Yeah.
for cleanup is to always go back to your storage. I believe most of the Azure and yeah, would have told you how to do that. Go to your resource group. Just go and delete your resource group. Just go the resource. Make sure you have everything on the resource group. Delete your resource group.
Okay.
Copy the name of your resource group. Copy the name of your resource group. Paste it here.
Hmm.
To confirm delete. Once I click on delete, it deletes it. It takes everything away. So everything I have done here, everything I have done here will be deleted.
Okay.
So in that way, you are
But there
not
is
charged. However, if you want to start all over, you have to
okay.
start afresh again.
Oh wow, I can imagine. I can imagine.
Yeah,
So quick
that's it.
one. You also mentioned. I know you didn't explain. Just for our viewers, for guys that are just coming, what's a resource group? Or in a nutshell.
Okay, resource group is just like a container that houses every all of the I don't want to use resources, all of the components, all of it, it tied all of the components you are using, all the maybe services or options that you're using, it tied them to a particular space for the purpose of management, for easy management. So the resource group
Hmm.
is just to tell you that okay, you know what, everything you're doing, it is here. You have everything here. It's just like an upper group, like a bigger container that allows you to bring in every other tools, every other services, every other component that you want to use. It just hold it for you. So that by the time
Hmm.
you want to make reference to them, maybe by the time you want to use them, you can easily go there and say, okay, oh, my resource group, this is my container. This is where I had all of my activities in. Remember what I told you the other time that we are tied to a particular location. When I created my
Yeah.
resource group, it was everything you are seeing here is UK South. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so because when I was creating my resource group, I have some other groups as well, some other resource groups here as well, that resources that I've created as well. But when I said that we initially get tied to a particular location that we choose. So when we are just choose a location that is closer to you or that where you want your data to sit. Although that may not really be our activity, it may be the activity of maybe your Azure admin, administrator, and what have you. But basically that's just resource group. Resource group allows you to manage all your um component, all your services, all your whatever, all your resources in just one at a click at a go.
All right.
So
Thank you
that's it.
very much, Michael. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your knowledge and your time with us. God bless you. All right. So our viewers, please kindly fill the feedback form in our comment section. All right. So we want to know how we are doing, how we're performing, and want to know how we can serve you better. What do you want to learn? All these things are going to be covered during the process of filling the form. Please do well to go fill the form, and thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for staying tuned. Thank you very much, Michael, for coming along all the way from UK. God bless you. All right. So
Thank you.
we, without further, without any other question, we are calling it a day. All right. We want to. I know we want to keep Michael till the end of time, but unfortunately, we have to go now. All right. So thank you very much, Michael. I hope next time when we call you, you're going to answer. All right. Take care,
Of course,
guys.
definitely.
Uh,
Uh,
sure,
okay,
sure.
bye, guys.
Take care, guys. Bye, guys.